Friends, welcome back to Living Soil Tree Farm. My name's Nick, for those of you who don't know me. Today, we're going to be planting some seeds, doing a few other things, but the main thing that I want to talk about in this video is Living Soil Tree Farm, the living soil part of that name. One way that I think that I fall short of that name, and and we'll dive into that a little bit. It's not very dramatic, but it is something I think interesting to talk about. I haven't talked about it in a long time, and I want to talk a little more about all the other ways that I think I do live up to that name, kind of what it means to me, why I think these trees that I'm growing stand out. Why it's more about the growing practices than the trees themselves. But let's get into it. Got to step through the electric fence here, which actually that could be, we'll talk about that soon. I just put this electric fence up. Can you guys see in this video? It goes all the way around. I expanded it. This whole pad is now fenced. We'll see if it works. It worked last year for the garden. We'll see if it keeps the deer out of everything this year. It's going to be interesting. We can talk about how we set that up and how it works. Maybe in this video, maybe in a future one, but the main thing, here's what I want to talk about. This right here. Okay, so the scene, for those who are not familiar, we're in the nursery. This is where I have these air pruning beds, which we've talked about a ton before. You can check out our videos on those if you want to know more about what they are, how they work, why I grow trees in them. This is an air pruning bed that has not been planted. Actually, if we look, I think this is the last one. All of these beds have seeds sown in them. They're mulched. Seeds are going to start waking up any day now. And we're going to build some more beds. We're going to fill this area out. But this one has nothing in it. And the way that I think I fall short of Living Soil Tree Farm, this is bare soil, and it has been sitting here in this state, exposed to the sun, the wind, the rain, the elements, all winter. I came in here and I dug the trees out in the fall, and I just left it. And that is the way that I'm falling short, because everything on the top here was alive, is now mostly dead, dormant, and dried out. That doesn't mean that this material is useless, right? There's spores, there's still potential for life in here. But if we dig down, we can see it gets a darker color. It's holding its moisture better. There is still life in here, and I've actually been digging in this. Look, see this fungal activity going on here, right? So this is alive. But because I've left it exposed, there's no mulch, there's no plants protecting the soil surface, it's kind of a waste. In an ideal world, in the fall, after I lift the trees out, flip around so you guys can see my face while I'm talking here, it would have been ideal if I could have covered this with some sort of mulch to protect the soil, or maybe even a winter cover crop. That's something I haven't really explored in these beds, but I just didn't have the time. I don't always have the time to do everything the ideal way for the life in the soil, but I think for the most part, I do a pretty good job at promoting healthy, diverse microbial life in the soil. But so what we're gonna do today is we're gonna go and get some fresh compost, various types. We're gonna take a look at what that looks like, fill this bed back up, and plant some seeds. So I like to reuse my soil, as a lot of you know. This is mostly aged leaf compost here, right? So the idea, you've probably heard me say this often before, this is mostly carbon. There's not a ton of mineral nutrients in that stuff, but it is what I use for the bulk of my soil in the air pruning beds. This is soil that came out of other air pruning beds that I took apart and moved. They were actually down somewhere else on the farm, and you can see them up here. I've got to get these frames back assembled and full of soil. We'll plant some seeds in there soon. Kind of a mess over here right now, but I want to look through some of this soil and decide what we're going to use. This has a lot of sand in it. When I was just starting out, I would fill the beds mostly with leaf compost, like what I showed you over there. I would add in a little bit of sand and clay just from the native soil. And then I would add top dress. This is kind of my basic recipe, is I'll top dress with some high quality worm compost, or compost that I make basically from food scraps and wood chips here on the farm. And now that we have chickens, also the chicken manure. That's this stuff right here. And if we dig down in, you can see this stuff. Look, there's already worms. Look at that. So this is the higher nutrient stuff. This is really where look at these worms. They're mating, I think. I believe that is, yeah, look at that. So we'll top dress with a little, I don't have as much of this stuff. This stuff is harder to produce, and if you need to buy it, it's expensive. If you gotta buy worm compost compared to leaf compost, very cheap. Here's some fresher leaf compost, not as fully broken down. That's it though, guys. That's all it is. That's all my beds have. So that bed, because it's got some existing soil, but it still has a pretty big gap, I'm gonna fill it with probably, I don't know, we'll probably get to about an inch below the top of the bed. We'll show you guys, with some combination of leaf compost and the stuff that came out of these other air pruning beds. Then we'll give it a top dressing of about an inch of this nice stuff. And we're gonna plant some seeds, as I mentioned. These are going to be English walnut seed, Persian walnut, Carpathian walnut. Got from a good friend of mine up in New York. They come from a very excellent mother tree. A lot of them are already germinating. They just got shipped to me. So I'm very excited to get those planted, protected from the squirrels. And that's that. I hear online a lot of people talking about or asking, let's see if I can find a good example. Do I need to orient the nut a certain way for the root to go down? The root can tell which way is down based on gravity, the same way you and I can generally feel which way is down based on gravity. But, so if I have a nut like this one, which doesn't have anything pointing out of it yet, I could plant it like that, I could plant it like that, I could do it like that. Doesn't really matter. Once you have something sticking out, it is important to keep that pointed into the ground. Because if I did it like this, the root would still know which way is down, but it would have to now make a big circle to go towards the ground, which would not be ideal for the seedling. It probably would survive, but it would be funky. It might not long-term have good root stability. So something like this, we don't get too worried. It's got a little point. I'm just gonna put it like that. Boy, it's hot in the sun. There's a lot happening in the nursery right now. We gotta go check on the chickens real quick, and then I'm coming back up here. I don't know how much of this will show in this video, but I've been moving all the potted plants around, clearing up the very last of this, you know, landscape fabric, plastic mess, whatever you want to call this stuff, the leftover infrastructure from the old nursery that used to be here. We had all of our potted plants kind of like these tucked into leaf piles all throughout the winter. So I've got pretty much all the potted plants stacked up. We just got to get this plastic out. I got to bring in more pallets, and then we got to start potting things up. I've got like a gajillion plants that need to get potted up. You can see here we've got service berries in this pot, dogwoods right here, a bunch of peaches that leafed out, and need to get potted up fast. So a lot of potting work to do. I'm hoping to get the last of the cleanup done today and tomorrow. Just get this last trailer load of trash out of here. Then we can really focus on spring. Obviously, we've got more bed building to do. Got a lot of planting to do in the garden. It's busy time. Spring rush is here. Full on here. Everybody's happily eating. Mostly happy. Big hoss. Push and wobble away a little bit. That's why we got to put food down in so many spots that everybody can eat without fighting. Plenty for everyone. There he goes. Big boy. Friends, just being honest with you, I really don't want to peel up this plastic. I don't want to do it. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's not terrible though. It's not terrible. But just wanted to think for a second here before I really get going on this last little bit. What are some other things we could say? To me personally, and this is very arbitrary, right? This is not like some official definition, but to me personally, living soil, what that implies is a set of practices which are general, and they're going to change depending on your circumstance, where you're at, what your situation is, but a set of practices that is going to promote generally vigorous, diverse, robust biology in the soil life. And what do some of those practices look like? Like I said, it's hard to make specific rules here because everyone's context is different. But to me, in this context of the eastern coast of this continent, coast is kind of a fun, I'm like 300 some miles from the ocean, but I still feel like we're on the East Coast here. And so doing things like using mulch and cover crops, preventing bare soil where you're trying to grow plants. That's one of the things, right? The other is making compost on site with as diverse inputs as possible. So I'm pulling leaves from various spots. I'm pulling wood chips from various species, chicken manure, food waste from myself, food waste from off farm, stuff that's coming out of the garden. I'm putting chickens when they pass away. You know, everything that was recently alive goes into our compost pile. And there's a ton of worm activity in there. There's a ton of fungal activity. There's mushrooms always popping up out of it. Pill bugs, black soldier fly larvae play a big part. So building compost, putting down lots of organic matter in the soil, the mulch we talked about, cover crops, preventing bare soil. These are some of the things. But then there's also the what are we lacking? We're lacking pesticides. I don't use any form of pesticides, fungicides, insecticides, herbicide, any biocide. I don't use them. And I'm not making a judgment call of people that do. And I'm not saying I maybe never will, but I don't see a need. I just don't. And it doesn't mean I don't have sick plants. Some plants don't do well. And when that happens, I try to address it with more compost. If that doesn't work, that plant's probably not built for this system, the way that it's currently sitting. I don't know. That's how I look at it, friends. And so what's important to me is that I feel like the soil that my plants grow in, although it's not homogeneous at all, every bed is a little bit different. I feel like the soil that these plants are growing in is full of life, and therefore the microbiome of these plants is hopefully pretty good. When they go into the ground, regardless of their size, if they were healthy, if they had nice, green, vigorous growth, regardless of size, when they go into the ground, wherever they're going, whether they're being shipped out or planted here, whatever, they have some biology innately with them, in and on their cells. And it's kind of an inoculation. They are prepared for real-world circumstance. They're not being grown in an exotic medium that is not representative of what they might find out in the world. You know, my plants are not being grown on a fertilizer drip. They're not getting fed continually fertilizer throughout the season. They're not being sprayed. When they have a pest or disease, they've got to deal with it. They've got to find their own way to produce compounds to prohibit that pest from growing. Like I said, I will sometimes add compost when plants are not doing well, and that is a fertilizer. Compost does have nutrients in it, but it's not something I'm doing on a super regular basis. I only do it if a plant is struggling. Now, one thing you could say, a lot of my plants, they're not growing in pure, sand, clay, native soil, but there is sand and clay in pretty much all of my medium. And the organic matter, the compost that I'm using, is something that I would recommend when you plant a tree, put a little bit of compost in the hole. So I do think that it is representative of what these plants are going to encounter when they go in the ground. When we are comparing to the standard nursery trait, and again, I'm not really levying judgments, I'm just describing differences here. Standard nursery trait, it's peat-based medium, it's cocoa coir-based medium. I don't live in an environment where there's much peat moss. There's definitely no coconut coir out in the, natural environment in this part of the world. And naturally, you're not going to find isolated fertilizers, pesticides, this sort of stuff. So I think that these plants are, I don't know, I guess I like to think, and what I have seen is that they are set up to have less transplant shock when they go on the ground. Doesn't mean none, doesn't mean it's all going to be perfect, rainbows and butterflies. There are a lot of butterflies, and actually I guess we do get a lot of rainbows around here. But you get what I'm saying, right? It's a loose outline, my ideals, my practices, but look, it's not perfect. Covered in bare soil out here. I'm not trying to grow anything actively in this area. I just pulled the plastic off, but just to say, folks, it's not perfect. The whole don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I think there's a lot of good stuff happening here, always trying to improve. That's some of what I mean. That's why it's important to me that I call myself Living Soil Tree Farm. That's what I think defines the living soil practices. Love to hear what questions you guys have about all that. Do you consider yourself part of this whole living soil thing? It's a loose term. People mean very different things. People will call themselves living soil, and they might be referring to a totally different set of practices, So it's proceed with caution or awareness. Well, I don't know what else there is to say. I think I got to get to the plastic. Well, friends, that was gross. I'm out of breath. But look at this. Earth can breathe again. Still got a little bit on the edges to clean up. I don't know how we're going to get that. It's really nailed in at every single one of these posts. But got most of it up. Saved most of the leaves and hay and stuff. We'll put this on the garden bed. I got one last section here, but I don't know if that's going to go in this trailer load. There's a lot of soil on it. It's kind of heavy. Might be helpful to have 2 people for pulling this out. And then obviously, back there, we've got at least 1, possibly 2, maybe even 3, honestly. Loads of pots. Now we're gonna save any pots out of there that are good, but a lot of them are smashed. So a lot of them are just gonna be trash. Obviously, I've gotta reorganize all this, get some more pallets down, like I said, do some potting up. But right now, it's hot. I need to go hydrate, cool off a little bit. Figured we'd just show you guys a sneak peek at how this is looking. And in case you're curious what the plastic all looks like with more trash. Just so much trash here, it's ridiculous. That's why I hate landscaping fabric. There's only one way it ends, friends. There's only one way landscape fabric ends. It lasts for a little while, holes get in it, soil piles up on top, stuff grows, and it just gets ripped, torn into microplastics. Terrible, terrible mess. Plus we've got all this over here that I've been pulling out the past few days. I think it's gonna be a pretty full trailer. What do you guys think? Like I said, sweaty, time to go get something cold to drink.